Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation, we're going to take a look at doing some string slicing using Python. Python slicing is about obtaining a substring from the given string by slicing it respectively from a starting point to an end point. In this example, I'm using the string administrator. And what we want to do is use Python to pull a substring from our primary string of administrator. In Python, the syntax for capturing a substring inside of a string is the string name, and we have to specify in bracket exactly what subset of the main string we want to capture. And so we have to provide this information inside of these brackets here. And inside of the brackets, we have a starting index and we have the last index. And up here, you see the index chart. This is how we can do it manually, and I'm going to go over this with you in just a moment. And so the easiest way for us to see how the index chart and the Python code actually connect is for us to run the code first, come back to the index chart, and try to make sense of the output. So let's take this first code segment that we have here, and we're going to configure it using the Python syntax, and we're going to insert this into a Python compiler and see what answer it comes up with. So here's our free online Python compiler, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click and I'm going to paste that code or that syntax into this interface here. Now if I just go up here and I press on execute, let's see what answer it comes up with. The result is the substring of NIST. Now let's go back to our presentation and let's see how we came about that. So here in the presentation, the answer to this first code segment is NIST. And it tells us here, you're going to start at 4 and the last number in the index where you're going to stop is 8. So if we look at number 4 on our index chart, we're going to stop just before the last index number. So we start with 4 and we're going to stop at 8, but we're not going to include 8. So it's NIST from the main string of administrator. And our substring in this case is NIST. Let's take the next piece of code segment and let's put that in the compiler and see what we come up with. So I'm back over here on the compiler. I'm going to go ahead and make me a space here. And again, I'm just going to right click in here and paste that syntax. Once we have the syntax pasted into the compiler, I'm just going to go up here and press execute. And it comes back and it tells us that this string is NSRT. Now let's take a look at how we come up with that. So let's see how well I can explain this. You'll see that our answer is NSRT, and it starts on the 4th character of the positive index. And if we look at our index chart, the syntax is telling us to start on block number 4, which is holding our letter N. It also says that we are to count up to 12 and we're to skip every other character. Well, if you look at the positive index, you'll notice that it starts with a 0. It doesn't start with a 1. And so if we start at number 0 and we count up to the 12th block, that would be block 11. And so the last character in our substring will be the letter T. Our answer is NSRT. All right, let's do another one. Number 3. I'm going to go ahead and copy this syntax on over into the compiler as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make me another space here, and I'll just right click inside the compiler and I will paste our syntax. I'll next just go up here and press execute. And our substring from our primary string of administrator is IMDA. Let's see how we got that. So let's see how that last segment of code arrived at IMDA. So if we look at our positive index chart, and we look at what we have inside the brackets, it tells us to start on number 3 of the index chart. So we're going to start here at number 3, and that is the letter I. Now the 2 colons tells us to count backwards. So IMDA. Now look at that -1. Our positive index chart actually begins on the number 0. So if we have a -1, it's telling us to include the numeral 0 in the index chart for our last character. And that's how we came up with IMDA. For this next and our last code segment, we will be using the negative index chart. Let's see how we do this. Again, let's go ahead and make a space on my compiler here. I'll right click and I will paste the syntax into the compiler. Now again, I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to press the execute button. And our last substring from our primary string is strat. Let's see how we got that. So let's see how we came up with the output of strat from our primary string, which was administrator, and how we came up with that substring of strat. Now for this, we're going to have to use the negative index chart. And if you look at what's inside of the brackets, it's telling you, start off with the placeholder of -7. Now -7 on the chart is the letter S. Now it tells us to go ahead and count STRAT, and you're going to stop at -2. Now if you see this on a certification exam, you're not going to be able to have access to a Python compiler to do all of this. But you will be able to create the 2 index charts, the positive and the negative index chart, for doing the string slicing. And so now that we have learned how to do this manually, we can now take a look at that syntax and let's see how it makes sense. So when we look at Python, we start off with this variable of S, and we're saying that S equals a string, and that string is administrator, all uppercase. Now we know this is a string because it's wrapped in quotes. All strings have to be wrapped in quotes. That's the rules. On this next line of syntax, that S actually stands for slice. So slice equals the string, which in this case is administrator, and it's telling you where to start inside of the word administrator and where to end inside of the word administrator to get your substring. Then we have the next line of the syntax, which just tells us to print to the screen. And so in this short video presentation, you got to see how we do a little string slicing using Python, and we got to see how it makes sense by using the index charts. I'm Professor K. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.